Okay, I think we are live. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. You are watching this video inside the new Systems That Serve Facebook group. And I wanted to just hop in and talk about some of the things that are happening. Not sure if you saw Monday's update video, but I'm going all in on why I love God and Jesus and why He is, the man in my business. And I want that for you as well. If you are, a Christ-centered coach and you want to put God at the forefront of your business, you know, this is the place where we get to talk about it. I don't know about you, but there's not a lot of business groups that I'm in that allows me to talk about both God and my business and time management. So that's what we're going to be talking about here. So let's just start from the beginning, right? Hello. How to set up proper boundaries with toxic people. And this applies to every type of person. It's not necessarily just, a toxic person, but these steps are specifically geared for people who have a little bit of a toxic quality. And I mean, it could be all the way from a narcissistic personality or all the way to just someone who kind of like keeps chronically overstepping your boundaries. Okay, so step one is you have to know what your boundaries are. I mean, that sounds so meta, but when you find yourself resentful, irritated, and just kind of upset that you've come to the end of your day and you're like, what the heck did I do all day? And then you look at, you take an inventory of your day and you realize, oh shucks, the dog wanted to go for a walk and I went for a walk instead of sitting down and doing the work, right? So really, like, what are your boundaries? Are your boundaries like time bound? Are they set time parameters, right? Are they like, so this is referring to a block schedule, what we call a block schedule, where you set certain time blocks in your day to work on certain projects or tasks. Now, during the challenge that's coming up, and I honestly, I moved it out a week because tech. And this is all about finding your flow and working from a state of overflow and not overwhelm, right? I have client work that, one of my clients is going through a launch, and I'm like, I'm also going through a launch. So, we have to be real and, setting appropriate boundaries with my client right now. Not that it's not an option, it's not a feasible option because the project needs to happen. So what I ended up doing is creating a boundary for myself that I don't want to have two projects all at once happening. So I put the boundary where I could, and it was with my own stuff, right? I know I talk a lot about loving yourself first, putting yourself first, but in the grand scheme of things, there were just too many moving parts in the client's workload that we just couldn't adjust. I mean, I did suggest that we adjust that schedule, but you know what? There are too many moving parts, and so I set up new boundaries for myself. Does that make sense? So that's step number one, knowing what your boundaries are. Because, right, if you don't know what they are, then one, you don't know what they are. You don't know when your boundaries have been crossed, and the people that you're dealing with don't know that they've actually stepped across your boundary. And so that leads me into number two. What actually constitutes a violation? When do you know that your boundaries have been crossed? Right, so that's why, right, you have to know your boundaries and the boundaries that you want to set. And we're going to be talking all about this in the challenge that's coming up. So it's September 21st, not the 14th, because we're finding our flow. And that's just how it's going to go. And it's also been renamed to Flow into Freedom. And more about that later, but it's really what I want you guys to experience is when you are in flow, you will no longer feel confined and strained or restrained when you're in your business. So, and this also talks about what I'm talking about today, which is like what constitutes a violation. So you probably know when someone has violated your boundaries because you're feeling hurt, resentful, offended, like all of these negative emotions that are popping up, anger. Um, yeah, so it usually shows up as anger towards yourself, towards someone else, or if you just start getting, um, irritable during the day, that probably means someone overstepped your boundary. And that's a trigger for you to say, okay, I'm feeling upset right now. What boundary did someone cross? And it's a conversation that I've had in my own house. It's like, here is where I would like to be. And here is like outside of the parameter. Here's within the parameter. And like we've had these conversations in my house. I've been named a perfectionist and I like everything to be done a certain way. It's just how my brain works. I set these specific parameters, not necessarily boundaries, but I set these parameters up for myself so that I have the free space to think. So just this particular boundary in question is a simple one: how to load the dishwasher. And I didn't realize all of what was happening. I was like, oh, why do these people not know how to, or people in my house, not know how to load the dishwasher? And it's not that like my way or the highway or whatever, even though that was part of the conversation that happened. But it's because like my mind, like I put the plates a certain way, I put the bowls and the Tupperware a certain way, and this is the way that works best for when it comes time to remove. So I already had a process and workflow in my brain, and then when the process and workflow wasn't executed properly, I'm like, oh, it felt like my boundaries were crossed. Does that make sense? It's a really simple example, but just wanted to let you know that it applies for both work and home life. So if this resonates with you, let me know. And yeah, and I am going live from the Facebook desktop version, so I can't see if anyone has joined thus far. So if you're here, comment, let me know. If you're watching the replay, give me #replay. Okay. So we already talked about know what your boundaries are. One, like you have to know what they are in order to enforce them, and what actually constitutes a violation of overstepping your boundaries. And so that leads to number 3, what are the consequences for when they get crossed, right? It's one thing to have a boundary. It's one thing to communicate when someone has crossed it, but to prevent them from keep on overstepping the boundary, there needs to be consequences, right? Because if you say this is the rule, let's just use face masks because it's what's happening right now. It's a great example. Right, here's the boundary, or use your mask, right? Use your mask. What constitutes a violation? Not wearing a mask. What are the consequences for not wearing a mask? Right? There's a consequence for you, right? There's a personal consequence, is you might get sick, you might get COVID or whatever. and then there's a consequence for the other people, like a personal consequence for them. Like if you're a carrier, you might give your germs to someone else, and you might expose your germs. Like if you are a carrier, you might unknowingly expose yourself to someone who has a lower tolerance of the disease. So that's what they're telling us. I don't know if I necessarily believe all that hype, because I know people in real life who have had COVID, but to each his own. And it's a very polarizing issue, so we're not going to go there, but it it's a real life example that everyone should should be able to relate to. So right there are the personal consequences, but they're actually like hard consequences that affect the organization or the state, the city, country, however big organization level you want to go, right? So on the organization level, the reason for the boundary of wearing a mask is because the hospitals don't have the capacity to support treating all of these patients, right? It's the same thing with your business, right? You can keep taking on more clients, more clients, more clients, but if you don't have the bandwidth or the system to sustain that level of clientele, your system is going to crumble, your business is going to crumble, and you're going to have lower you're going to have deliverability issues, if that makes sense. You're not going to be able to produce results like you would. So if we're using the hospital example, right? If they get a flood of COVID patients, they're not going to be able to give proper treatment to each patient. It's the same thing with clients in your business. If you get a flood or an onslaught of clients and you don't have the infrastructure to support the onboarding and the ongoing support for your clients, your system is your infrastructure is going to crumble. And what are you going to get? Like in the hospital example, people are going to die, or their cases could be significantly worse because they're not getting the proper care and attention. Same thing happens in your business. If you don't have the proper infrastructure, your clients are going to suffer. Not that they're going to die, but if you are a business coach, their business could suffer because you don't have the infrastructure to support that or support them, right? And I've experienced that in like all the different number of coaching environments that I've been in. I've had one coach that was super supportive and always checking in and whatever, right? That would be like a nurse that's always checking in on you, like making sure your vitals are good, making sure you have the proper nutrition, blah blah blah, the proper care, right? And then I had a coach on the opposite side of that spectrum that wouldn't check in with me, would only respond if I pressed the call button and sent a message out. Then the coach would respond back, and I'm like, when I am involved in a coaching program, I want the high touch, I want the high level of care, because I'm a verbal processor. I need to process and speak out loud my ideas, and without the proper care and attention to me and my business, that was a reflection of their coaching infrastructure. It wasn't really a reflection of their coaching per se, but it did impact the way that I was able to grow and feel about the level of care I received as a client of theirs. So this is what I don't want to happen to you, right? I don't want your clients to come in and they're like, yay, one, I'm not a sales coach, I'm not a marketing coach, I'm a systems coach. So once all the clients come in, what do you do with them from there? Right? How do you make sure your clients feel supported, feel cared for once they enter in as a client, right? Once they check into your hospital, so to speak. And that's where and even like before they check in, like we're using the hospital example, it's like do they have an online form, or do you have to go to the ER and then they give you a clipboard and you have to fill out a piece of paper, and then that piece of paper, your chart gets passed around or whatever? Or is it like one of the hospitals we were in Hawaii? They check you in on the computer, and then in each room in the ER, they just pulled up a computer and it was all tied together, right? Your chart was digitized, and the, each nurse popping in could see it. And this is for my husband's appendicitis. When he went in for follow-ups, all of his history, everything was there. It was all in one place. And I think even his vitals were tied into that. So all of that to say, right, what are the consequences for you not holding not with holding up your boundaries, right? And this goes for everybody, from like toxic people in your family. And that's the beauty of the program that I'm creating, the time wheel that you guys are going to get next week or following week when we start the challenge, is you're going to get the time wheel. The time wheel is an assessment of how you feel overall, about yourself, about your business, about your personal health, and that energy that you have or don't have. Because I've talked about it before, energy is the number one thing that you need as an entrepreneur to keep going, right? You are the biggest asset in your business. Your brain is the biggest asset in your business. And as a health coach, when I was doing that exclusively, right, I'm in the online space, a lot of my clients were entrepreneurs who had businesses. Yes, they needed weight loss, but the number one thing was they didn't have energy. They didn't have the energy to take care of their home life and their family, plus have time for their business. And it's like their business was always on the back burner. Or if you're looking at it as a triad, it all depends on where their value system was. And so that's what the time wheel is actually going to have you do. You're going to plot everything out on the wheel. There are 12 pieces of that pie in 4 quadrants, and you're going to actually see visibly, and it's a super easy assessment. It's not 20 questions. You just rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, how you feel in this certain area of your life. And based on those, you're going to see where you need better boundaries, right? If you rank yourself very low on the time quadrant, per se, the time relates to relationships. The time quadrant relates to relationships and who you're spending your time with. So you may have to have better boundaries with people. And then let's say the identity piece. If you score very low, sorry, I feel like I'm seeing a hair. In the identity section, if you scored low on that section, that means you need better mental boundaries on how you think about yourself. Whose words are you letting into your brain? So there you need better boundaries there. The money piece, if you have a lot coming in, a lot going out, right? Inflow, outflow of cash, self-explanatory. You need better boundaries on your cash flow. And then for the energy piece, which is the health piece, if you rank very low in that quadrant, you need better boundaries for your health, right? Do you need to eat better? Do you need to sleep better? Do you need to exercise more? Because health is not about like how you look and like, oh, like, am I fat? I mean, who hasn't put on a few pounds during COVID? Am I right? And if you haven't, congrats. Honestly, I've made health a priority during COVID, and I've been seeing a specialist. So I've actually lost weight. I lost 10 pounds. Woo-woo. So, but I honestly started seeing her because of the brain fog and my low energy, and the weight loss was a side effect of increasing my energy and getting my brain to fire better. And that was worth it for me to pay because I needed this noggin in order to execute the tasks that I need to execute in my own business and for my clients in their businesses. So all that being said, let me do a recap. How to set better boundaries. 1, know what they are. Do you even know where the boundary line is? Right? And if you don't know, you will know when someone has crossed your boundaries because it'll bring up a negative emotion, either anger, resentment, hurt, something like that. And then you'll know that they've crossed your boundary. And then number 2 is what actually constitutes a violation. How does one know when your boundary has been crossed? Like what line did they actually cross? So this is like knowing where the line is and knowing what say like number 1, knowing what the boundary is. Okay, here's the line. And what constitutes a violation is what action did they take when they crossed it. Does that make sense? What action did they take that had them cross your boundary? And then number 3 is what are the consequences once they are on this other side? What is the consequence once they get on this side of your boundary? Okay? So if you guys have any questions, I'd love to know. I'd also love to know how you guys are like me on this platform, going live from my computer, or if you like me going live better on my phone. So, and of course, the challenge. The challenge, again, it's going to start now on September 21st, not this coming Monday, but next week Monday. And the registration page is here. Is it showing now? So you can click on that link to register. This is why I went live here on Facebook and why I love systems. I love like technology and making it all work. And oh wow, let's see. The link, is it showing again? Okay, let's see. Cool. There, I think the link is showing now. So if you have any questions, go ahead and click on the link. Well, let's see if I can pop it. Oh, no, that's the wrong link. Let's see if that works. So there it is, folks. There is a registration page for you to go and sign up. And if you have any questions on it, you know, I would love to get some feedback on the challenge, and is it speaking to you? How do you like the sales page or registration page, whatever they're calling it these days? Is it a landing page? You know, there's all different kinds of words and things that people use. But yeah, go ahead and register, sign up for the challenge, and you'll get your welcome email with all the details of what we're talking about, when we're talking about it. It's going to be in the afternoons, about 4 p.m. Pacific, Monday through Friday, starting on the 21st. And there's also going to be a bonus Q&A session. It's going to be a live Q&A session for you to come, bring your questions, and we're just going to chat everything about systems that serve on that Q&A call. And I would love to see you there. So go ahead, sign up for that, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.